Peter and his companions saw Jesus in his glory and Moses and Elijah talking to them. And Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. The word transfiguration was made up by and for the New Testament. It suggests something, a change, so unfamiliar, so out of our experience, that truly we've never seen anything like it before. Transfiguration. There's Jesus kneeling in prayer, and suddenly he's changed. His garments become dazzling white, and there's an aura around him, and Peter, James, and John see all this, and then they see 2 others. They see Elijah and Moses also gloriously arrayed. And Peter's immediately response, at first glance, looks a little strange, but I think is perfectly normal. He says, "Let's build a monument to what we've just seen. Let's build 3 churches, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Isn't that exactly what the builders of the Middle Ages were doing? They erected their churches as monuments, as shrines to the glory. When you travel around Europe, some of the best churches are in tiny villages, and some of those churches are huge and the village is small, and you think, well, maybe 1,000 years ago the village was full of people who could fill this church, and then you look into it and discover the village was never large. The church never needed to be that big. And then you realize those builders were not constructing auditoriums, they were constructing monuments, shrines to the glory. And they're built like rocket ships, a Gothic church, pointing upward, trying to lift us up from the earth into a higher plane. That's what Peter wanted to do. He wanted to build one for Moses, and one for Elijah, and one for Jesus. He needn't have. One would do, because Moses, Elijah, and Jesus had an important thing in common, and that thing would justify one church. They would be suited and happy in one church. I'd like to look at with you this morning what that church would look like. What would that church look like that would honor all 3? Well, first of all, let's look at who they were. They were truth tellers, each of them, in a time when their world was coming to an end. They were not themselves revolutionaries. They didn't start any revolts, but they were surrounded by revolutionaries and by revolts and by tumult and by change. Moses lived perhaps in the 13th century. Hard to date Moses, but that's a pretty good date. In the 13th century, the Pharaoh was in charge of Egypt, and the Pharaoh was the only person who counted. There are pyramids to the pharaohs. There are no pyramids to anybody else. The only person in ancient Egypt that counted was the Pharaoh. Everybody else was down here, almost nameless. The job of a good Egyptian in those days was to figure out their place in that static society, figure it out, stay there, and then eventually die. Work hard and die in your place. No moving sideways, no moving out of town, no moving upward. It was a static society. And Moses confronted Pharaoh over exactly that. This was the truth that Pharaoh had to hear from Moses, namely that Yahweh was the God of change. God wanted things to change, to be different. God wanted his people, all people, to change, and Pharaoh couldn't stand it. So he sent Moses back to the slave camp. And then you know the story. Then comes the plagues and the Red Sea and the wilderness and all that kind of thing. But Pharaoh did not give up, and neither did Moses. Moses continued to tell the truth about what Yahweh desired in the way of change, and Yahweh prevailed, because change always happens. no matter how Pharaoh-like we get, no matter how much we try to keep it all down, keep it all there, the kids will grow up. We stay the same, of course, but the kids all grow up. Things do change and occur, no matter how hard we try. And the Red Sea is always there waiting to part for those who are open to change and to a new life and a new destination on their way, journeying to the Promised Land. That was the truth that Moses was telling the Pharaoh, a truth hard to hear, that God always wants us to change. Then you move on to Elijah. Elijah, easier to date, lived in the 9th century at the time of Ahab and Jezebel. The one who counted there was really Jezebel. The Bible says a lot of things about Jezebel. You get the impression kind of from the Bible that the thing that really made the writer irate was that she wore lipstick. But there's a lot more to Jezebel than that. Jezebel was tough. And she was the power behind the throne. Ahab had the title of king, but she was the one who told Ahab what to do. And what she told Ahab was, you know, we are the law, you and I. And the law, it is us. And whatever we say goes, and forget the statutes and the traditions. It's all about us. You want Naboth's field next door? Well, Ahab, you have the power of eminent domain. And Ahab says, I have the what? And she said, never mind, just take it. And so he did. And that got Elijah going. That was the incident. That was the catalyst. That really got him going. And he went to Ahab and to Jezebel, and he told them the truth, namely, that justice will prevail. That Yahweh is not only the God of change, Yahweh is the God of justice. And things that are upside down are being put right. That's what justice means in the Old Testament. That's what God meant by justice. Taking the things that are wrong and setting them up right for a change. Now, Ahab and Jezebel tried to get Elijah off after that. They tried to hand him his head. You know that very famous story of Elijah where he's up on the mountain and is being fed by ravens, and he sees God passing by, not in the earthquake or in the storm or in the fire, but only in the still small voice. He's up there in those mountains because Jezebel has sent the army after him. And Elijah is up there all by himself. But Elijah and justice have the last word. For the last thing we see about Elijah is that he's being taken into heaven in a chariot of fire. The chariot of fire is the fire of God's justice. It will scorch the earth. It will burn things that have no reason to be. It will get rid of the weeds. Even today, our Jewish neighbors and friends keep a place, a high place for Elijah at their Passover, at their Seder. They keep the door ajar just in case he should want to come in. It will not be closed against Elijah. And they keep a chair there empty at the table for Elijah because Elijah is the harbinger of justice. When he comes, believe the Jews, then comes the advent of God, Yahweh's justice. And justice will prevail. That's the truth that Elijah was saying to Ahab and Jezebel in their generation. They didn't want to hear it, but it was happening. And then Jesus. Jesus in the first century also lived in a time when worlds were coming to an end, when change was everywhere. The Eastern army, the Roman Empire under Vespasian would very soon wipe out the temple and destroy Jerusalem, not in Jesus' time, but after his death. But they were there, and they were there to keep order, according to the Romans. Order meant nothing should change. Everything should be the same, and everything should be for the benefit, of course, for the Romans. Jesus told the truth against all that and said, that's not God's way. God wants something different. And God wants you, God's people, to have hope. Even amidst all this oppression, all this destruction, all this cruelty, God wants you to have hope. And the people said to Jesus, how can we have hope? And then Jesus tried to tell them the truth, but Jesus' truth was so hard to reduce to words that he had to show them instead. The story that just precedes the story of the Transfiguration is the feeding of the 5,000. That sets the context for the Transfiguration into glory on the mountain. What's going on in the feeding of the 5,000, whatever's going on, it is a Eucharistic moment. It is God nourishing and strengthening his people. God showing that he has abundance for his people, even though the Romans have only scarcity for the people. Jesus was showing them that truth. He was trying to reveal to them what the Eucharist continues to try to reveal to us 2,000 years later, namely that things are not the way they appear. Look into the tomb of Lazarus. Look deep and you will see God already at work bringing new life into being. And look at the bread and look at the wine, the paten and the chalice, and learn to see more than bread and wine. Learn to see behind the scenes, beyond that, to what's really happening. And once you've seen that, once you've been backstage to see how it operates, it will never be the same for you out in the world. Now, how do you build a church to show all that for Moses, Elijah, and Jesus? Well, certainly you have to start with reality, correct? You want a church that's situated in a real place and that does not deny the evil in the world. You don't want a Disney-fied church. You don't want a theme park church. You don't want something so precious that people are afraid to go into it. The children are not comfortable in it. You want a real church. Well, there is such a place in this earth. It's in Coventry, England. And you've heard the story before, but it's worth hearing one more time. One last time, I fear. It is a story of the rebuilding of the city and the cathedral in Coventry. The 900-year-old church was destroyed in November of 1940 by Luftwaffe bombs in a very destructive night. When it came a decade later time to rebuild the cathedral, the authorities decided to leave it the way it appeared in the morning after the bomb struck. The roof was missing, the glass was all blown out, there was rubble along the edges. They said, let's leave it that way. We'll build a new cathedral and we will attach it to the old cathedral, but let's leave the old one to remind us of this moment in time when death and destruction seemed to be the last word. And let us say what Jesus was saying, what Elijah and Moses were saying, that they are not the last word. That Yahweh, God, has the last word, and things are not the way they first appear. For if you look only at the destruction of that 900-year-old Gothic cathedral, you could get very depressed and blue. You have to go beyond that. Now, when they came to build the new cathedral, they attached it to the old cathedral, and they make one place of worship. And you can't get into the new cathedral without first going through the old one. That's the interesting part. You can't just bomb right into the new cathedral. You have to go through the destruction. And as you go through, and you see there's no roof and no windows, and it looks like devastation everywhere, your eye is taken up to the front, where the original stone altar of nearly 1,000 years ago is still standing. And there's something new on that altar. It's a cross of nails. When the builders went in to clean up after the devastation, they discovered the roofing nails from the Middle Ages. And they put them together in the form of a cross, and they set them on that altar, and then someone carved behind it, Father, forgive. That's what you see amidst all the destruction. Cross of nails, Father, forgive. And then you turn, and there are a few steps leading up, leading you higher to a place of hope, to the new cathedral, which is exquisite, large, but exquisite, but as un-Gothic as anybody could possibly imagine. You know, a Gothic cathedral really represents the earth well. They have these beautiful, sometimes grotesque carvings of animals and fish and reptiles all over the place, plants. And the message of the Gothic cathedral is, look right here at the things of the earth, and then you'll see God. But Coventry's cathedral is different somehow, because when you walk into it, there's nothing Gothic about it. There are no side altars, no stained glass that you can see, no carvings, no decoration. Your eye is immediately taken to the front of the church. And above the altar of that church is this magnificent, huge sculpture of Jesus in glory by Jacob Epstein. That's where your eye goes. Jesus enthroned in glory with his arms open, inviting, welcoming people to come forward. And you can do nothing else because there's nothing else to do. So you walk forward all the way up to the altar. And as you look around, if you're not there at the service, or if you are at the service and you take communion, and you get up and you turn, then you see it. Then you see the transfiguration. You see the glory. For the architect has somehow situated the windows at an angle where you can only see them on the way back from the altar. Only the way out into the world of destruction and death and devastation. That's where you see it. And it's bright. Those windows are bright and glorious and radiant, joyful and hopeful. And you walk down that long aisle, and now you're surrounded, bathed in this new light that you didn't even know was there. Who could not walk into the world with a whole different view? Unlike the Gothic, which says, look at the things of the world and then see God, Coventry is saying, look first at God, and then look at the world with new eyes. See the world in its transfigured glory, the way Jesus sees it, the way God sees the world. Father, forgive all the destruction, all the death, all the injustice, all the static societies. Father, forgive, for we have hope that things are changing and things are being put right. What a monument to the true glory of God.